Out of 10 today, how proud of you are you for the effort that you put in, for what you did? There he is, man. How you doing?
Dude, I'm great. Super stoked for your book, man. I can't wait to read it. It's going to be awesome. So one of the things that I'm just so fascinated about and always hearing from people is, what is your approach on if someone has a limiting belief, such as I'm not good enough, or I'm always going to be rejected, or things like that? What is kind of your go-to advice for someone who wants to get a new belief about themselves, or, get over a limiting belief that they might have had in their lives that's holding them back?
But is this for you, or you're trying to change somebody else?
It's more so changing someone else, because for me, like, I've kind of gone through my own process, but I'm always curious to hear from people what their own process is, what their own advice is, and kind of just, hearing different opinions. I value your opinion very much, so I was curious to hear what you think about it.
So you don't have to say who the person is that's in your head, but what's the limiting belief that you're trying to change in this person?
Yeah, so I'm not good enough, meaning, like, whenever they try to, like, do something, they don't feel confident because they don't think their decision's right. They don't think necessarily that whatever they're going to do is ever going to amount to enough, and leading to confidence issues and anxiety and all those things. So,
do they want to change?
I mean, yes, I think so.
Have they approached you for advice?
Yes, they have.
Okay, well, that's a good step. But listen, here's the thing. As we grow on our personal development journey, we want to help the people around us. It's just natural. Like,
right.
You've learned so much. You've grown so much. Look at you versus you 5 years ago. Like, holy cow, I don't recognize that person. But there's often this overzealousness to want to just help everybody around us. But then maybe they don't want help, Maybe,
right.
I mean, they need it, and you see that they need it, but if they're not willing to listen and take the steps, then it's a different strategy, because you could just end up alienating yourself more than anything else, more than actually helping.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they feel like they're not good enough, and they've come to you for help to say, hey, Joe, how do I fix this?
Yep, and I've given them my kind of advice for that, but I'm always just curious to hear, like, new strategies and lessons and anything else that might be more effective. But I understand that, obviously, coming from a place that's worked for me is probably the best and only advice I should give. But I'm always wondering, from successful people who studied this stuff, such as yourself, like, what they think about it.
What advice did you tell them?
I told them that basically they have to, if they think they're not good enough, because that was something that I dealt with for many times in my life, was, like, setting clear, specific rules about, like, what I would define success on, and always make it something internal as opposed to external. So, for example, like, for me, I would reward, like, myself putting in hard work every single day, as opposed to saying that everyone's like, or I'm getting the approval from someone. So making strict rules like that and reminding myself in those moments, like when I'm not feeling good enough, is saying, what can I feel good about in myself that's not dependent on the outside environment? So kind of defining clear rules about that.
The two things I would say, I like it. So the two things I would say, one is similar to that. It's tying yourself forward to the effort, not the result.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's every day. What I would have this person do, if they're serious about wanting to make a change, is every day do a scorecard on how proud are they of their effort today. So out of 10, like today's Sunday, great. Out of 10 today, how proud of you are you for the effort that you put in, for what you did? And this is not related to the results, because, if I'm feeling really sick and I can't do much, my results might be a 1 out of 10. But my effort just to get out of bed and do anything could give me a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And so learning to, the problem is, if you tie yourself worth just to the results, you're only going to do things that you're going to get a result on. And then when it's something that you think you're not going to get a result on, you don't even try because you don't feel good enough. Right? Which is the problem. This person is a genius, has a lot of abilities, can do things, but is knowing that they're not going to win the first time out, and so they're not willing to try. So tying yourself worth to the effort. Like, what did you try today? This is what I would have them do. What did you try today? What are you proud of for doing? and every day trying to give yourself at least an 8 out of 10. And if you're not there, like what else can you do to be proud of your effort, right?
Right.
This is especially important for people who are achievers, because if you've had any kind of success, everybody around you is telling you how great you are, which is awesome, but you know that you could have done better. Like your average is now somebody else's amazing. It's like, yeah, great, I did that, but I kind of slacked off today, right? Like I could have done so much more. And so applying the pressure to yourself through the efforts, right? So that, I would have them pull out a journal, and whether you want to be their accountability partner to make sure that, you know, they follow through on it, every day at the end of the day, out of 10, how proud are you of the effort, regardless of it, if it worked out or not, right? And then you reward them, like, hey, you did an 8, like, great, you tried to do that thing. You know, they want to start a YouTube channel, great. They made their first video and they posted it, awesome, right? Tied to that is you need to expect to suck at anything at the beginning, right? You're going to suck. Like whatever they try, they're going to suck because it's the first time you're doing it.
Right.
So if they're trying to make a YouTube video, the first video is going to suck. Like you just expect it to suck. Awesome. I'm amazing, right? I did it. Right? Like that needs to be the internal conversation, and that's what you start rewarding even just between each other, that everybody else is looking at them and saying, man, you suck. Look at that video. It's brutal. And you're saying, holy cow, you tried. It's awesome. Right?
Right.
So you start being that encourager of the effort and almost not caring about the results. Like whether they get somebody to comment or they get, 100 views or whatever like a benchmark is, it doesn't matter. It's like, did you try your max? Because even if they got their 1,000 views, like, did you try your hardest on that video? Nah, dude, you got to go back. Like, I'm not celebrating the 1,000 views. I'm celebrating, like, you need to put in your max effort. So the daily scorecard out of 10 and expecting to suck in terms of the results. So that's step one. The second thing I would do is whoever makes them feel, and like maybe it's you, but look at who their heroes are. Who is this person's heroes? Do you know who they look up to, who they love, who they respect?
I know Lewis Howes is on the list for them. Jesse Itzler is on the list for them. So those are like two of the big guys that I know he really likes. Great.
So the good thing is Lewis has got a ton of content. Jesse, I don't know if he has his own channel. I know he's done a bunch of interviews, but he's got the book. He's got a bunch of content out there. Every day I would start with content from one of those two guys. Because Lewis went from sleeping on his couch, like he was, I don't know if you know his story, but it was athlete, breaks his leg, I think it was, and then was like sleeping on his sister's couch and hates his life and feels totally worthless. Talking about a guy who felt worthless, right? I'm not good enough. That's Lewis's story. And so, Lewis could get out of it. Jesse, I don't know as much about the story, but his father taught him all about this whole self-worth coming from effort, not results, came from his father, and it was one of the most important things that his father instilled. I would have him for sure look at the interview between him and Gary Vaynerchuk, and Jesse did an episode on Gary's podcast, but his video, YouTube too, where they talk about tying your self-worth to the effort, not the results. And so if those two guys make him feel a little more brave or unstoppable, Nina's got some laundry behind us. That's awesome. I got to fold that later today, right? Yeah, I got to fold that after. If it gives him a little bit more courage, then start your day with one of those two guys, either an audiobook or the book or video. Lewis has tons of content, so that should be easy. Or any of his other heroes, right? So you're not allowed to let your day go by, especially the morning. Like I don't know what his morning routine is. If he works out or has coffee or whatever, drives to work, like part of your morning routine has to be now consuming at least 10 minutes of Lewis or Jesse or one of your heroes. If he's doing that every day, like you may not notice a difference from today until tomorrow. But if every day for the next month, every day he's starting with one of those two guys and he's checking in with you at night over how proud he is of his effort, he's going to change. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just repetition's the mother of all skill. And I love that too. Cause like thinking about in my life too, like even just hearing stories from, you know, even guys like you who like go out, who you're like, yeah, like I'm a natural introvert, but I go out there and I crush stuff. It shows that it's possible. And I think that when you can see it's possible in other people's success, like going through the same stuff, I think it gives like that beacon of hope. Is that kind of like the angle that you're going for with that, or?
Yeah, I mean, the whole introvert thing was, people look at me and well, it's easy to think, wow, well, he's got it all figured out and he's going on stage and, you know, doing all these events, making all these videos. And I'm 6,000 videos in on my channel and still scared to make a video on my channel, right? I'm not. Lewis is the opposite. Lewis is such an extrovert. Like, I was just hanging with Lewis in Puerto Rico like 2 weeks ago or something. And he's going up to everybody and saying, hi, how are you? And remembering all this stuff. And like, that gives me anxiety. You know, like I hate talking to strangers. And there's no right or wrong. It's just leaning in on you. And so I used to avoid going to any of those kinds of events because it made me feel anxiety and stress. And so I didn't do it. But the conversation that I changed in my head was, I do things that make me feel nervous. I do things that make me feel scared. Being fearful is not a good enough reason not to go off and do. So for Lewis, hell, he just shows up and he crushes it because he's an extrovert and he loves it. For me, like, I'm already freaking out in my head just on the airplane on the way down, like, oh my God, what am I going to talk to these guys about? And so just showing a little bit why I started creating content around that is showing a little bit behind the scenes, because in case you're like me and that stuff kind of gives you anxiety, to say you could still win. You could still go off and do it. You still belong in rooms like that. Like, you could be at a table like that and hang with those people too. You don't have to be super extroverted or super, you know, whatever, XYZ. And in that, it's for everybody watching or listening, you know, in your vulnerabilities is the thing that will tie people to you, right? Like, whatever you struggled with and then continue to struggle with is the thing that will make you feel human, and that you're still going off and doing it, even though you struggle with this thing, is the inspiration. So it's not a surprise that your friend is struggling with self-worth, and he loves Lewis Howes, who struggled with self-worth. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And dude, I appreciate your vulnerability always. It's an inspiration to me. It's an inspiration to others. And I love the advice you give it to me. I'm going to give it straight to my friend. Tell him it's straight from Evan Carmichael. Sure,
30 days, dude. 30-day challenge. Have him do a 30-day challenge every morning with a different Lewis Howes video, at least 10 minutes, and every night checking in with you of how proud he is of his effort for the day.
All right, man.
Don't let him off the hook, man. Okay, and then DM me in 30 days and say, here's what happened. Dude,
you know I will, man. Thank you so much for the advice, Evan. I really appreciate it.
And if this guy doesn't do it, if he doesn't do it, then private DM me his name, and I'm going to blacklist him and say you're never allowed to watch it.
I will definitely say that. I'm going to include that.
Send him this video.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, I for sure will, man. Dude,
Much
Evan,
love,
thank
man.
you so much, man. Take care, brother.
Much love.
If you have a podcast or interview show and want me to be a guest on it, I have two options for you. There's a link right there next to me. Go click it, and I look forward to being a guest on your show.